got it. All right. Good morning. My name is Tom Foster. I am one of your Johnson County District Court judges. I am now assigned to the juvenile crime or juvenile delinquency docket. It's a pleasure to be here. Special group. It's nice to see some familiar faces. And, such a special group, I put my most special tie on. So it's the signers of the Constitution. It's one of my favorites, but I save it for special occasions. Well, I was really, Betsy talked about Johnson County getting involved and Kansas getting involved in the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative. What year was it again? 2009? 2011. I was chief judge here in Johnson County at that time, and was really happy and proud to be involved in getting that process started. I was not handling a juvenile docket at that time, but in 2012 I decided to go ahead and move over to juvenile delinquency docket because I wanted to be involved in the front line of what was going on, and so I had an opportunity to go to the annual conferences to really learn a lot about what the right thing to do for children is. Children who are stuck in our juvenile court system. So Betsy talked about what's happened with our detention over the last, it's about the back of so we have 2006, 2016, 69 kids average daily population, our local detention center down to 18.7. So the first thing I do every morning when I wake up is I get my phone out and I turn it on and I pull up the email that Betsy's office sends out to about 80 of us in the court system. So the judges, people in her office, probation officers, the district attorney's office, and we get our daily report. Two reports. One, what kids got arrested last night in Johnson County, and who is in jail. So we have this fancy little chart that comes out. I have the name of every child we have in detention here in Johnson County, their birth date, their race, the date they got arrested, what their most serious crime is, how long they've been sitting there in detention, who their judge is, when their next court date is, what county they're from. Most of them are from Johnson County, but today I think we have a couple of kids from Jackson County, maybe one from Willamette County, but they're usually Johnson County kids. So we get our daily report. That's the first thing I do every morning. See, hopefully we didn't get anybody arrested last night. Hopefully the kids were good yesterday. I think when I started, it was not usual to see 4 or 5 or 6 kids at detention hearings that we have daily here out in the courthouse. Now there's days when we have none. And so a little question here. Who's been here, living in here for Johnson County for, say, 20 or more years? Quite a few. And we're here, a lot of us are here because we like the schools. They have great schools here. And it's a safe community. And when you came here 20, 30 years ago, or whether you grew up here, we felt we were living in a very safe community with great schools. And I know, how do you feel now? Do you think now crime is higher in Johnson County than 20 or 30 years ago, or lower? So if you think it's higher 30 years later in 2016 than it was 30 years ago, who thinks it's higher now?
Social media would make you think.
Good. All right. So go ahead. You can move this. So I think this is our chart.
Of course. There we go. We'll give it a try. Well. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay. So I've got a chart here. And here's the chart. Crime hit a peak in the United States and really here in Johnson County right around 1998 or 1999. It's been down in the last 15 or 20 years here in Johnson County. Crime is 40% lower than it was 15 or 20 years ago. Another thing I do is, so what we're doing is we're trying to make good decisions for kids. And we don't want them to recidivate. We want them to have a healthy life. We have three places where we send kids these days if we feel like we have to take them out of their homes. We have our local detention center that we've already talked about here, 69 kids down to 18 average daily population. We have our group homes that both Betsy and John talked about. So these are for kids that not so serious you need to send them to juvenile corrections, because that's the third place, is juvenile corrections. We have 2 juvenile correction facilities here in Kansas. One's out in Larned and one's in Topeka. So this kids that have committed serious crimes and we feel like there's no other option, those are the 2 places they go to. And in our process, in the juvenile justice work group that I was on with the Representative Rubin, the thing that really surprised me the most was what we found out about the group homes. We were sending these kids who had not committed serious crimes to out-of-home placements, group homes throughout the state. There were maybe 13, 14 of them in different places across the state. What I didn't realize as a judge is how long they were there. They were gone over 14 months was the average length of stay at these out-of-home placements. And they were rotating from one group home to another. They go to one group home, they commit some infraction in the home, and the home would think, oh, I don't want this kid, so they kick him out. And so then they go back to the local detention center, and then they get moved out to a second group home, and the process would start all over again. So just getting cycled from one group home to another. We also found out that the average AWOL rate was 30%. So 30% of these kids that were sent off to these group homes were just gone, just walked out the door and gone at any single time. And they're usually gone for 30 days or more. So other states were going through this process of reviewing their juvenile justice systems, had also seen problems in group homes. The data told us that, and I think either Betsy or John mentioned this, but studies would compare kids that are sent to group homes versus kids that are put on probation. And they use 66 factors to try to find similar kids. And these are studies, they're nationwide studies that have been going on for the last 30, 40 years. So they'll take try to find kid 1 who maybe he's 16 years old and committed a certain crime and his family dynamics are such and such, and he's got so many priors, and so they identify 66 identifiers for this kid, and that kid went to a group home. And then they keep searching until they found a kid with the same 66 factors, but they put this kid on probation. And they just keep populating and just comparing. What they found was there is no benefit to sending these kids to group home. A similar kid sent to probation versus group home, there's a higher rate of recidivism for the ones that got sent to the group home. So, this group, we were just convinced that it's just not make sense sending these kids out to these group homes. So what some of these other states had done, and there was, like Betsy said, I kind of warned them about opening up a group home here in Johnson County. But I also believe that if anybody could run a good group home in the state, it was going to be Betsy, because she's sharp, she's got sharp people, and they do good work. And if anybody could run a good group home, it was going to be Betsy. But they found the same challenges when they started our group home here in Johnson County. But They had kids, you know, that walked down the street, and I remember one case I got 3 felonies out of it because these 3 kids decided to leave the group home and take off. And it ended up in a very bad situation. Some of the other states looked at their group homes and says, well, we're going to really change our group homes. We're going to say, we're going to limit the length of stay. We're going to have programming. So if a kid goes to group home, they'll go for 4 months, and they'll have this programs, or they'll go for 6 months and have this programs. Well, we looked at that too. In the end, I just thought the biggest decision this work group made was to close down the group homes, except for the 30 or 40 beds that Betsy talked about. So I think it's a dramatic change. I think it's going to be a very good change. And the reason I want to put up, the bottom line is how safe is it in your community? So are we, like the doctor said at the beginning, are we coddling kids? Are we coddling or corrective? Coddling or corrective? Is it permissive or autocratic? Well, there's been a lot of brain science development the last 15, 20 years. Even the United Supreme Court is starting to recognize that juvenile brains are different. They've made decisions making it illegal, you know, no more death penalty for kids, no more life imprisonment without parole for kids. The United States Supreme Court cases recognizing that kids' brains are different. They just are not fully developed yet. And the scientists tell us that it's not, we shouldn't be permissive, we shouldn't be autocratic, but authoritative. And we know that kids respond much better with positive reinforcement than negative reinforcement. We know from the TV shows we see about stupid things kids do, you know, crazy things they do, trying to ride their bikes or jump off stuff, and they just don't care if they're going to get hurt. That's not what motivates them. The good feeling, the excitement they can get out of things is what motivates them. They don't think about consequences at all. So we need, in our programming, we need to think about that. We need to provide as many positive reinforcements as we can. And we have many programs that we're trying to use, and they're all, what we're trying to go to is evidence-based programs, things that work. Do things that work, don't use things that don't work. You might remember boot camps. Used to be a big thing about 15 or 20 years ago. Where you could send kids or adults off to like military-style boot camps instead of sending them off to prison. Scared Straight. I don't know how many have watched Scared Straight on television, where you take the kid to the prison and you scare the kid straight by how you treat them and what you say to them. Well, the studies we're now trying to study what happens in these programs to say, okay, if we're going to do this program, let's see, is it going to work or it doesn't work? We're just not going to do something that sounds good or we think's good. We're going to follow it through and see if it works or doesn't work. Well, boot camps and Scared Straight programs have a higher recidivism rate than any other program. And the cost, it costs a lot, and they result in higher recidivism than lower. So they're really, Kansas closed its boot camps, and I think most boot camps around the country have been closed. Scared Straight, we don't use that here. But one of the best programs, they say, is the intensive family counseling, where they get somebody in the home and start working with the entire family. So we're trying to use programs that have been proven to work, like the IFC, the FFC. We talked about our evening reporting center that we opened, and where we'll pick the kids up from school, bring them to the reporting center, have some talks and maybe speakers come in, certain topics to talk about, maybe some type of training, feed them, have a recreation period, maybe work with them on school, then their parent picks them up at the end of the evening. So we know that the highest crime rate time for kids is between 3 in the afternoon and 6 in the afternoon. So 3 to 6 p.m. is the highest crime rate for kids. different from the highest crime rate for adults. So you get off school, parents aren't home yet, they're on their own for 3 hours, and that's when things happen. We also know that kids commit crimes in groups at a much higher rate than adults. So the juvenile, it's like 40% of juvenile crime is committed in groups. So you get some kids together and they influence each other and make impulsive bad decisions. And so kids are different. And the experts, the studies show that we get better results if we treat people with respect in a fair process in court, and not only actual fairness, but you have to have they have to have the perception of fairness. So I could go in and make a good decision and do what's really fair for a kid, but if he does not feel that he was treated fairly, we're not going to have good results. So he might think the judge was not fair with him, or he might think the prosecutor singled him out, was really mean and treated him unfairly. Or he might think his own attorney treated him poorly and didn't meet with him, didn't explain things to him, and he might think he got a raw deal from his court-appointed attorney. Or he might think the probation officer wasn't being fair with him. So the perception of fairness is significant. So we need to treat kids in a system in which everybody in the system is on the same track. We're doing a lot of, Betsy's offered a lot of programs. I know we have her staff try to train them in motivational interviewing. I've gone to that. Our whole community is trying to become a trauma-informed care community. So I've gone to that training as well. And we've had medical community, officers, court personnel, judges go to the trauma-informed care training. So the studies even show that oftentimes if you just did nothing with a kid, you're going to have better results than if you try to put them on a program that they really don't need. So sometimes hands-off is the best policy too, which is why I think we have a very robust diversion or intensive or intermediate intervention program that we're now calling them diversion programs. So we're looking for all the options we have. When kids come into court to me, I try to make sure I talk to them in a normal level and get to know them. I try to say something nice to them every time, whether they appreciate being on time or how they look, ask them how they're feeling, and some of them even ask me, they say, well, I'm doing fine, how are you, Judge? I say, well, thanks for asking me that. Nobody's asked me that today. I'm doing fine too, thanks. It's really nice that you asked, but treating everybody with respect, no matter what the crime is, whether it's a very minor matter or a very serious matter. And I'm going to finish with one thing, and that's what you can do to try to help us. Two things. So I showed you the crime rates where it's going down in Johnson County, but we want to keep watching this. We don't want to implement these things if it's not keeping our community safe. And when we're going to these meetings in Topeka, going over the juvenile justice work group process, a lot of common theme would come up, and somebody say, well, this is what's recommended, and that's what's recommended. This, and then somebody said, well, they're already doing that in Johnson County. Well, they're already doing that in Johnson County. Oh yeah, they're already doing that in Johnson County. So we really were at the forefront of this juvenile justice movement. And is it working? And the one thing I always look at is the crime rates. I want to see the crime rates. And those were Johnson County crime rates I showed you, not state or federal. Those were Johnson County crime rates. And every week I look at our case filings and I can see if our filings are going up or down. And the last 3 years, we've had the lowest number of juvenile felonies in Johnson County as far as back as I go. I've been a judge for 17 years. And so 269 one year, 268, 267. We've had almost the same number of felonies these last 3 years. And today, knock on wood, we're in November, we're on track to have the lowest number of juvenile felony filings that we've ever had. So we're about 6% below last year's rate. So that'd be 15, maybe 10 to 250 or in the 240s. We do have some serious things happen here, and we want to make sure that we handle those cases the right way too. But I do believe that these are good decisions we're making. We're handling these things the right way. And the last thing I'm going to tell you now is what you can do to help lower crime. So I told you, kids do things in groups. Kids do things impulsively. Car hopping is one of our biggest problems here in Johnson County. And garage hopping. So kids will get in a car, they'll drive down the street, or they'll go to an apartment complex, or they'll go to any place where they see a bunch of cars, and they'll start walking down the street, trying to find the first unlocked car they can find. And they'll go into the unlocked car and see what they can find. Whether it's a phone, or whether it's change, or whatever it is. And then they'll get out and go to the next one. Next unlocked car they can find. And if there's keys in it, they'll take the car. And it's the same thing with garages. They'll drive around looking for an open garage. So I live in a nice neighborhood in Leawood, and I've told my wife, I see Joe's here. Joe, you keep your garage door closed, don't you? In the neighborhood. So in Kathy. But we're not going to leave our garage door open anymore. If we're working in the yard and we go in the backyard, we're not going to leave the garage door open in front. I'll leave it open if I'm in front mowing the lawn in the front. If I'm going to the backyard, I'm going to close my garage door and we're going to lock it. Go out and get the paper, fine. We come back to the paper, we're going to lock the door. Because they'll walk down, they'll drive around looking for an open garage door. And they'll go in and they'll take beer out of the refrigerator. They'll see if the keys are in the car. And one thing leads to another. We've had some really bad things happen because kind of gone into a spree. But lock your cars, close your garage doors, tell your kids. I remember one case in which one kid took like 3 different cars over a 3 or 4 day period, and every one was keys were in the car. So I remember one of the gentlemen came in and said, "Well, yeah, my son's took my son's car and said it was in the driveway. Oh, the keys were in it. Yeah, but." So anyway, that's my request for help to help keep crime down here and help kids out. If you just spread the word to lock doors, and appreciate you inviting me here this morning. Nice to see you all. Thank you.
Let's give our panel one more round of applause. We see that definitely we can protect ourselves and maybe help some of this impulsivity, but not make ourselves easy victims. Questions for the panel? Do you have any questions? Okay, I'll bring the mic and we'll quickly ask a question.
I hope and think it's subsumed under some of the wonderful programming and changes you're making, but I have to just bring it up anyway. Provisions for young people with disabilities, and I'm especially talking about what we call hidden disabilities, ADHD. We talk about all the spontaneity that even regular kids have. But we hear horror stories about kids with autism and some of those things. I'm guessing it's covered, but I just had to bring it up.
Special populations.
If I can get my mic on here. I got it.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say that is a good lot of the population that we deal with have those types of and so we do make sure they're getting to resources they need. But there's something that has gone on recently with the state, and they have now independence grants that are coming out, and they're going to be working different. I wish I could remember all the names of the facilities now, but we've just learned they are going to be helping us, people 16, I believe, to 64 years of age, in trying to get them into both rehab faster, taking them through that process, and then also then helping them get, of course, once they get into both rehab, they can also get help with buying necessary work items, tools, whatever kinds of things. So I think those independence grants, I think there was a total of $5 million, I believe, the state dedicated to that. And so that's been a good reason. That's through Department of Children and Families, but it's going out to all these community organizations that are going to help with those things. Okay.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, and yes, I'd like to add something else too. This was actually separate legislation, but we were talking about the school to prison pipeline. Another significant issue that we found, and this was actually another work group task force that I served on in 2015, is that specifically with disabled kids and specifically autistic kids in Kansas, far too often in Kansas schools, teachers and administrators took the path of least resistance and would seclude them or restrain them unnecessarily when they were not posing, they maybe were being disruptive in class, but not posing a threat to themselves or others or to property, and with very deleterious effects on the child involved, and at its extreme, when the child would then react, an autistic child, a number of examples of it, would react when they call in the school resource officer, and the thing would escalate, and they wind up in the criminal justice system. So I'm happy to tell you also that that legislation that I helped sponsor also significantly limited and defined the permissible use of seclusion and restraint for not only disabled kids, frankly, but all kids in schools, but it was specifically focused on disabled kids. We got that legislation passed last year as well.
We have another question.
Just a brief response.
Okay.
So there's a lot of talk about kids being over-medicated these days, and too many kids on these type of meds. And I do see kids I have in court probably have been, are supposed to be taking prescriptions that they're not taking. So that's something I'm always concerned about, is whether they're following the recommendations of their doctors. But
in order to get, thank you for the answers, but we'll probably have only one person respond to the question, and then afterwards someone, so that other people can get their questions. Okay, so.
My question is, the type of training that you had talked about for the people in the rehab programs and helping to sort of teach our children through the criminal process instead of just locking them up and throwing them away. You said that the people were going to have training. I don't recall if you said they were volunteers or not. But my question is, we don't have enough money in the state coffers right now to even comply with the statutes in terms of what social workers are supposed to do. And my question is, are we giving up on social workers, or are we switching off training that you want to give for social workers?
Well, the training that I think you're referring to, I was talking about the YAP program and how they were going to be trained and to be advocates for those youth that were formerly in those group homes. And so we're saving, by doing that $54.17 a day is saving what used to be $126 per day. So we didn't add additional funding for that. I think, though I'll just mention, and I think everybody knows, we have seen continued cuts in mental health funding in the state. That's a huge issue, and we continue to push for that. And also, something that hasn't been mentioned here today as part of that legislation is also working with the Department of Children and Families and for the Children in Needed Care system. And so there's some other things that still need to come forth and more money be placed into that, which I'm hoping some of this can be from this money, this locked box of money saved. But I hope that, we're tight in the state.
I think we have one more question. We may have several, but one of the things is that we try to be timely as well. So we'll take this one question, because I always tell persons that our programs end usually right around 10:30.
I was wondering about gender issues. What percentage of girls find their way into the juvenile justice system, and what special issues are involved here?
Generally, we're seeing more and more females come into the criminal justice system just because of the severity of things that they've done. Generally, though, it's been both adults and juveniles, in my experience, has been in the neighborhood of 20% of all the youth that we, or adults that we supervise, 10 to 20%. But again, it's for different types of crimes now. A lot of times there may be very serious crimes that they're committing, peer pressure from boyfriends and other things. But we recognize that we actually do have some special gender-specific programs.
I want to thank our panel for a very enlightening, no wonder we are high information people, because we have the benefit of this wonderful programming, and I cannot thank you enough for giving us this wonderful program. And I know that they have offered to stick around afterward and answer individual questions, and if you have any questions that you would like for us to address, possibly we can work on that as well. So I want to thank you. Yes?
I just wanted to remind particularly some of our longer-term members, back in either the late 1990s or very early 2000s, I co-chaired a study on juvenile justice for our league, and we do have a position on juvenile justice, but I know from listening to you this morning that we need to update that. So when we do program planning in January, I will remind us of that need to do an update on our current position.
I know that Melissa included in our newsletter, our current position, and I thought at the time when I was reading it, I thought, my gosh, we were visionary at the time, and it's a lot of it applies even now. So again, it makes me proud to be a part of Johnson County, because we have people who are interested and advocates for our citizens, and that's part of the quality of life that we have. And so thank you for that piece as well. I will ask you to please engage with our speakers if you'd like. And I know that you have all voted and all of that kind of stuff, but we have a lot of displays over here. And if you have any questions, again, thank you. I think we've passed around the booklet, right? And that's going to end up someplace. And I have to tell you, I have this little packet of stuff. These are the postcards that have been sent to my house since the, I generally collect, I'm a collector of lapel pins, but now I've decided I am going to collect these postcards and stuff like that. So feel free to just send them to me if you feel like it, or hold on to them. So, all right. So again, have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Thank you for joining us. New people, thank you. Those of you who are just